Academy manuals about banking, and that manual always said that banking is a very important aspect of anyone financial life. So what we did today was actually bring somebody who's well versed in banking to answer some questions to get us in to the back door of understanding what the banks do, some of the things that we could actually utilize to our advantage, and some of the things that we need to know in order for us to acquire wealth the right way. So yes, Mr. Wayne Pierre, I've known him for, wow, maybe 30 years or so, 20 something years. And he's always very professional. And if it's one thing, I know he knows his stuff. So Mr. Pierre, please just, well, your mic is open. Give us your take on tonight, what you hope to accomplish, because they're going to have a lot of questions coming out from the topics. So all over to you, sir.
Okay, a pleasant good night to all the participants. Thank you for having me on your training program tonight. What I really want to do is start with just very few general comments, and I think we will get more out of the session with the questions that may be burning in some of the participants' mind, and I will do my utmost to answer any of those questions. Now, I don't know if I want to set them up tonight because, as you will see from the resume, I've been out of banking for a while, and I have tried to stay far from the banks, but unfortunately, I have to deal with them, my clients. So I don't know if I should start with a disclaimer that anything that I may say is based on my opinion and my experience, and it's not an indictment on any bank or any banker. So I will start with that.
Thank you, sir.
What I want to say, people may have different opinions of banks and how banks operate, more so in our environment. The bank could be your greatest partner, or it could be your greatest nightmare. It depends on how you build and nurture your relationship with your bank, or I should say your banker. And I would start by saying that it may not be easy for everyone, but if it is possible, instead of looking for a bank to do business with, you should look for a banker. And I'm saying that because a banker on your side can help you with almost anything. But if you don't have that relationship and you don't understand your rights as a customer of a bank, it will be to your detriment. Because banks are not here. One of the things that banks are not, the bank is not here to make you rich. The bank may not even be here to help you, because we forget at times that the bank is also a business. And the bank is in the business to make money. And of course, they make money at their customers' expense most of the time. So as a customer of the bank, you have to find a way where your goals and the bank goals could be in alignment, that you could benefit off of the services and products that the bank offer to get what you want. But it is not that easy unless, as I say, you have that relationship with your bankers. Now, I don't know if in terms of going into the types of services, I know there will be more questions on loan facilities and mortgage and so, as opposed to savings. But if we start from the savings aspect, one of the things, and Ivan being and Wayne Wilson insurance colleagues, and we know that bank savings is not, it is just that, a savings to meet your current expenses. It is not an investment. And I will tell you why as we go along. It is not an investment, it is a a holding account that you can use to do your day-to-day activities. And that is the most you can do with a savings account in the bank at this point in time. And I will go as far as to say any type of account with the bank when we get into rates and that sort of thing. So if one is looking to build capacity, to build wealth, we have to look at other options other than our commercial or retail bankers. In terms of looking at services now, banks, and I don't want to jump the gun, but I will jump to the point where today, right now, there's a very, very high liquidity in the banking system and a very low rate of credit loan applications for obvious reasons. People are skeptical of taking loans at this point in time, not knowing what tomorrow may bring. Their businesses, as you know, would have been shut since March, some of them never to be reopened. The banks are also very cautious in even lending, even though they have this high liquidity, they are very cautious in lending because, again, one of the things with the banking system, especially in Trinidad, they are very risk averse. The banks, they do not take risks. And you would see from year to year, the bank profits, regardless of the state of the economy, the bank profits continue to rise. And one will ask the question, how is that possible? And that is possible for the same reason that even in spite of high liquidity and low credit applications, the banks survive. And it's mainly because the banks in Trinidad and Tobago make their money on what they call the spread, which is the gap between deposit rates and lending rates. So you find international banks more make money on products and services. The fees and the charges that they make on products or services is where they make the majority of their profits. In our environment, it is on the spread, not only in deposits and lending, but also in foreign exchange, where the buying and selling rates, that spread there, the bank make quite a bit of money. So you will continue to see, so whichever direction interest rates move, whether up or down, it doesn't affect the bank because the spread remains. So if you have an interest rate at 5% and or 10% and the spread is 5, in other words, the deposit rate is 5 and the lend at 10. If interest rates go down in lending, the deposit rates also go down, and that spread remains constant. And that is how they continue to make money. And this is why they can also survive, regardless of whether people are borrowing or not, because the cost of funds is almost zero. It's little to nothing in terms of cost of funds. And when we say cost of funds, now there are even some bankers who are not quite clear as to how the bank's balance sheets are looked at. I remember a bank manager making a comment that she had her branch was a high deposit branch. And clearly there's a lack of understanding that the deposits in a bank is an asset to the depositor, but it's a liability to the bank. And that liability has a cost to it, or should have a cost to it. But I don't know how many of us know that right now the average deposit rate is below 7%. Not 7%, sorry, 0.7. So we're looking at 0.68, 0.69 is the return, not even 1% you are making on deposits at this point in time. So there's no cost. So even though the bank has high liquidity, there's no cost to them, or very little or no cost to them, so they could survive. on whatever loans already exist because of that spread. So in terms of looking at your plans, in terms of wealth accumulation, if you're looking at business, I mean, since I've been a little boy, we have been hearing the word diversification every year, every budget, every general election or any election, diversification. And the same way they beat that word diversification, I think it has lost its meaning. It's the same way that you keep hearing talk about entrepreneurship and building entrepreneurs. And we also beat that word to the point where you no longer understand what it means. Because to this day, and this is again from my experience and my perspective, there's absolutely no institution in this country that is geared towards financing entrepreneurs, startups, small businesses. I don't know how many of us will remember IDC years ago. IDC went to Small Business Development Company, and then they removed the word small, and now we come to NETCO. And all of these institutions, what they would have done, would have taken someone at the managerial level to run, from the banks, to run these institutions, and then they hire the same bankers that are so risk averse to the banks to run these same institutions. This is why the majority of them never survive. I could tell you from experience, some years ago, about 15, 20 years ago, I remember when we tried. Everybody hearing me, right? Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, when they came, they introduced venture capital. They were trying to introduce venture capital to Trinidad and Tobago. And the government of the day offered incentives to persons investing in startups, in venture capital, and so on. I remember a big seminar at the Hilton, and all the who is who in the financial services sector were present. And I stood up and made a statement that venture capital will never work in Trinidad and Tobago. Then you could have heard a pin drop in the room, because who is this young startup making this kind of statement with all these bankers and financiers? But ideas and capital cannot come together in this country that easily. And that was the experience of IDC. There were young entrepreneurs, people with business plans, ideas going into these organizations with their plan. And of course, for them to even facilitate you, you have to come with a complete business plan. And they will ask you to leave your documents, and they will look at it and so. And before you got through the door, they would study your plan and look for someone who they knew and offer the same plan to them and offer the financing to their friends. And we found that a lot of young entrepreneurs or would-be entrepreneurs lost their business ideas that way. When they went to small business development, again, from an experience, my brother actually would have applied for 5,000 US to bring in a printing machine, because he does printing and so. It took over 6 months. This is a small business development company, a government organization. Over 6 months, until the foreign supplier offered to send the machine free of charge, and he would pay whenever he could. But by that time, he had already bought the machine, piece of equipment, cash, because his business was thriving. He was doing printing for most of the banks, central bank, and he was able to purchase the piece of equipment cash while waiting on this institution. We have come all the way to NETCO, and again, you find that it is challenging. So, but our bankers, our banking system, the commercial retail banks, are not geared to respond. And I remember another seminar at the Art of Lookjack, where we were talking about global competitiveness and how competitive we are at innovation. And there's another word we beat about innovation. And again, I sent up a question, you had to put a question on a card and send it up. And I sent up a question on a card, and that basically ended the seminar because it took the rest of the seminar to respond. And the question was, where are our trained bankers to assess the types of businesses that are being started at this time? Because when we were in the agricultural age, they had land, they had livestock, so they had something to hold. We went to industrial where they helped building machinery, cars, or whatever. But the new age business, all they have is an idea in your head. And the banks are not geared to deal with that because there's nothing to hold. They can't hold your brain. They want, and I will tell you, I was in Tobago at the time, and I started a company, a consulting company. When I went to the bank to open the account, they want to know who my suppliers are. They want to know what is your receivables and payables and who the customers are. What signage? I said, listen, it's a business I'm starting from home. I said, I have two offices. I have an office at home that has a desk and a computer, a printer, and a scanner. And I have an office. At that time, it was Lowland Mall. Lowlands Mall, Gulf City Mall in Lowlands in Tobago, because that's where I met all my clients. But the banks can't deal with that. And I am not kidding you. The manager of the bank came to my home to take pictures of where my office space was. You know, to ensure. I said, because my only two suppliers was Amazon, where I bought my computer and whatever, and PriceSmart, where I bought my stationery. So I'm saying this to say that one has to really understand what purpose the bank serves, because our banking system is geared towards consumption. They will lend you any amount of money to consume vehicles, even property. If you want to travel, fridge stove, but once you go with a business proposal, it is a different mindset. And I want to say something here that may, create a little doubt in your mind, or I won't say controversy, but if you, and I know the majority of the participants are entrepreneurs or would-be entrepreneurs, wherever you are at this point in time, if you know that you want to get into business 6 months down the road, 3 months down the road, it is advisable that you either get an 8-to-4 job for that period of time before you're ready to start, or you have some contact that will be willing to supply you with a job letter and a payslip. And again, from my experience, I went to Tobago on a 3-month contract to set up the financial systems for the Hospitality Institute. And that 3 months went into 8 years. And that 8 years was a decision that I made because I always had intention to purchase lands and so in Tobago, some investment. A piece of land at that time, I was just thinking of. And I was offered the position of the CEO. After the 3 months, I was the CFO, and then within a year, I was the CEO. And within 4 months, I went to the bank with a job letter and was able to borrow $1.5 million to purchase land in Tobago. And I'm saying to you, if I went as a consultant, as a businessman, I think I'll still be waiting for that facility, because the easiest things that the bank understand or they lend is based on job letter. As a matter of fact, as a business owner, it is easier for your employees with a job letter from your business to access finance from the bank than it is for you as a business person. Now, I am going through a number of things because I know when the questions come, I may have covered some, or we will just delve a little more into it. And one of the things that, again, and I'm dealing with credit more than savings, because if you're like me, most of us don't have much to save anyway. But we're looking to build capacity. So we're looking at where we can source financing to do the things that we want to do, to give us the lifestyle and the resources that we want. Now, I started off by saying, instead of you looking for a bank, you look for a banker, and there's a reason for that. The literature talks about the 6 C's to credit, and they give you these 6 C's: your character, your capacity to repay, your capital injection, what collateral you can offer, what are the economic conditions at the point in time, and the confidence that the bank would have in you based on you meeting those other 5. But there's a 7th C that you don't see in the literature, and that C overrides the other 6, and that is contact. Because the right banker could really help you in almost any financial endeavor that you may have. And I remember going to my banker and sitting with her and saying, listen, I am going to show you how you are going to structure this loan so that I can get it. And I sat down and I told them, this is how to structure it, and this is how I want it done. And that is the only way I will be able to qualify for this facility. And that's how I got the loan. Because we also assume that the person sitting across from us in the bank understand our needs. And it is an unfair assumption, because I always say I don't blame the managers, I don't blame the loan officers. The banks do not, in terms of building their capacity and training, because it is unfair to expect a bank manager or loan officer sitting at a desk. A retailer comes in looking for finance. As the retailer leave, a farmer comes in, a manufacturer comes in after that, somebody in the construction, and there's no banker who will completely understand all these different industries to be able to make a proper analysis to assess that proposal in a meaningful way. And this is why the first thing to resort to is collateral, because it is difficult for them to assess sometimes, because you have to understand the industry that you're dealing with before you could even understand the client needs. You know, and I noticed again by sitting with bankers, having to go through the ins and outs and ups and downs of different industries so that they can get an understanding to make it easier for them to assess your proposal and to be able to finance. So I throw out some of these things, and I want to open the floor ready for the questions, because I know that we will get more value coming out of that you share whatever questions you may have, and I will do my best to give you the appropriate answer.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wayne. Thank you so much, Wayne. You really said a mouthful, and I think you touched on every aspect of what we were talking about in this seminar that we have, in this online seminar that we're having tonight. Because what happened is that, yes, a lot of the people here are entrepreneurs, and we have had the same challenges as you and as many other people. And what we are looking for is actually solutions on what can we do in order, because, you know, somewhere along the line, we always seem to need the bank, you know, and now that they're recalling a lot of the paper currency and we are going digital, we are somewhat at their mercy. So what do you suggest? Let's start off with that question, because the banking system is actually changing. So what do you suggest we do? Because again, you said that having a good banker is critical. So do you suggest that we really spend 90% of our time formulating that relationship to our banker in order to get certain things done? Because if that banker moves on, as many of us have experienced, a lot of things change. We
Yeah.
may not get the same facility. So we are still at the mercy of the bank, when it comes to it. So what do you suggest what is our first line of attack and defense then?
And you're speaking from in terms of the whole digital money.
Well, no, I'm speaking just as a normal person
A
going into
normal
the bank.
person. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
As I say, when you're approaching a bank for a facility, again, as I say, not everyone can build or have a banker in their corner. But you see the word confidence, you have to go to the bank with a level of confidence, not arrogance, but confidence that you know what you're talking about. And you have to be, at the same time, be able to put it over in the most polite manner that they don't feel that because sometimes they don't know. And you have to explain yourself in some detail. But what I also want to say is that sometimes as an entrepreneur, you have an idea, and the idea could make money. And we all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and we run into the bank with our business plan and our cash flows and whatever. When I do a business plan or a cash flow for a client, I show the bank just enough money to pay the loan and to make a small profit. And I will tell you why. You go into a bank manager, only let's say $20,000 a month. That's $240,000 a year, with whatever other perks or whatever. And here you come a little upstart, looking for a $500,000 loan. Your turnover for the year going to be 1.5 million, and you're showing a profit at the end of the first year, $500,000. No way getting that loan. I'll tell you that. Because they measure you, and I mean, I am sitting here as the banker, office secretary, whatever the name is, and you come in to show you can make twice my salary in 1 year. And what you find they do, they take your documents and they sit down and they study it, not to finance it, but to see how they could either take that idea or sell that idea to somebody else who they feel might be more deserving of making that kind of money. So it's a catch-22 situation, because remember, you have to submit everything, your full business plan. But you do it at a great risk. And this is why I'm saying, if you don't have a banker that you have a relationship, chances of you getting that facility is not about it's not a bankable proposal. They probably make it look too bankable at times. So you have to be very, very cautious and very, careful
Strategic.
how you project the business, and so, because it could create problems. Also, I don't know that answered it well to some extent. That is one of the things that you have to look at in approaching the bank. But in terms of understanding what your needs are, because most businesses, you see, we go on statistics a lot without understanding why these statistics exist in the first place. Most businesses fail, 90% of businesses fail in the first year, fail in the second year, fail in the third year, and we talk failure of businesses. That is the rhetoric that you hear. How many new startups fail, right? And we do not analyze why most of them fail. And I would suggest to you all that the major cause of failure has nothing to do with profitability. Is that you were not properly financed to start with, and that will put pressure on your cash flow. Because you remember, once you borrow money, whether if you sell an ice cream, before you sell the first cone, if you don't sell a cone in the first month, the loan has to be repaid. installments, rent, whatever. And we look at the capital requirements a lot of the times, and we downplay the working capital requirements. And the working capital requirements is what destroy most businesses. Cash flow kills business, not profits. Most of the time you don't reach to the point where you can start to realize profit because the cash flow already destroyed the business because you were undercapitalized. And the role of the bank really should be to assist in those areas. That all right, you may run in the bank, you work out, you need $100,000, and the bank support. And I remember the same small business development company. I did a cash flow, and it had negative balances at the end. And the officer said to me, "But you can't submit a cash flow that's showing negative balances." I said, "Why not?" I said, "Those negative balances are telling you what my overdraft requirement would be. Because if I give you all positive at the end, it means I'm not telling the truth because we know that you know that the expenses come before revenue start to come. So there has to be some backup in terms of either a working capital facility, which could be an overdraft, or an excess on the loan for capital expenses. Otherwise, you'll be out of business before you start because within 2 months you can't pay your rent, the mortgage, the loan in arrears, and that sort of thing. So those are the things that you have to look at as an entrepreneur going in, but you have to go in there with an understanding that you can talk in terms of your idea and where your business will position itself in the industry and that kind of thing. So I hope that kind of answers to some extent.
Yeah, because what I wanted to get was how important that relationship was, and you basically
Yeah,
identified.
most important
Yeah,
because
because everybody experienced they had a banker who was very, very good, and then that banker leaves, and then the bank just deal with you as a number after that. And do you suggest that we have more than one bank to deal with?
hello.
Banker?
That is our understatement. You have to play bankers off at each other. Now the thing is with the big four. I mean, people talk it and they try to deny, but it's really a cartel because everything we probably do, Scotia does, RBC does, and FCB to some extent. The new players on the market, the JMNB, the Answer, now they're a little more flexible, but you have to also be careful because Zodi this week, I didn't think it still existed, but I found out this week it still existed that you may go into one of these other banks, and I don't want to call name because I don't want to
Yeah.
but it is not the traditional four big banks. And they were telling customers we offering a lower rate than the other commercial banks. And you're applying for a loan, you're anxious to get the loan, they tell you a lower rate, and you take it and you run. They give you an installment, you don't want to compare that installment to see, you're comparing interest rate and not installment. Only to find out that the interest rate is add-on as opposed to amortized. And add-on, to explain what add-on means, the add-on, if it's $100,000 loan at 10%, the add-on the 10 for 5 years, the add-on the 10%, which is 10,000 for the 5 years, and then divided by 60 months. So you're paying the 10% as though you have the same 100,000 for the 5 years. So the installment, they show you a lower interest rate and you run with it, but the installment is actually higher than if you take an amortized loan, where you are paying interest on a reducing balance. I didn't know other loans still exist, but I found out that there's an institution doing that, and they mainly operate in the car industry. And this is why they have a very high foreclosure rate with cars, because some of the people realize that they have been hoodwinked. They can't pay for the car, and there's a whole lot of repossessions. So they always have car sale. But so one has to compare oranges with oranges and mangoes with mangoes, and make sure that when you're comparing what is being offered by other banks, you're comparing like with like.
Good. Okay. Thank you. So we open the floor. I think Muriel had some questions. So the panelists, please, you can start your questioning.
Yeah, an observation turned into a question because I'm saying what really is the benefits of putting your money in the bank? Really to avoid being charged by the state because you could only have certain amounts of money in your home, and to avoid a gun-toting bandit, because to me, the bank robbing in front of your face when you're paying less than 0.7%. And if you have to take out money from some banks over a particular amount, 10,000, nothing much else, you have to pay a point interest to take that money out. So what's the real value of the bank?
Well, again,
And
you
how
know,
much different are they from each other? You know?
The bank, as I say, if you're putting money in the bank, it has to be maybe like salary. It's like in and out. It is money that goes in and you have easy access to do your day to day.
But you have
Other than that, you have to look for other financial institutions or instruments to put money if you're looking at from an investment standpoint. And let me give you an example. That same account that I spoke about in Tobago, I opened an account with the bank with $500. And I didn't operate for a couple of months because I came back at Trinidad and I was doing some other stuff. And then I started getting calls and calls with attitude that I had an unauthorized overdraft with the bank. I never touched the money. They actually took out charges every month until they take the whole $500 and put it in overdraft, and then calling me with attitude that I have an unauthorized overdraft with the bank that I need to come and clear. So not only is the return low, they also take in what you have in.
That's why I said it's a type of robbery.
Yeah, and they make no calls about it.
I mean, it's controversial, but it's the hardcore reality. And what else? And as you say, the bank would be there really just to facilitate your purchasing transaction and to help facilitate that with their benefits, because they'll offer you consumer loan to be able to make these purchases faster. But at the end of the day, you want to make a proper borrow money to do anything substantial, and it's a ring around the mulberry bush. So
one of the questions,
the value of the bank.
No,
to me, me.
No, as an ex-banker, and I don't want to sound, because I'm not here to bash the banks, but I am speaking.
You're not bashing them, I'm bashing them.
Yeah, I'm speaking reality and I'm speaking experience. The banks are there to help you, trust me. The banks are taking poor people money, offering them 0.6%, and then lending that money at 7, 8, and 9%.
Obviously.
To their big customers, and they are just making, and then the little you have, they said the little you have shall be taken away, the little you have keep dwindling, and they are putting monies into the coffers of the big boys, and they're taking. A matter of fact, the bank, I mean, I could call it, at one time, Scotiabank actually had a plan to get rid of the small customers, and this is why they created a line for the gold customers, and everybody is in a very, very long line, and it was to dissuade you from coming in the bank, because they don't want you inside the bank, because when you come inside the bank, there's a cost to them to have tellers by a company to deal with you. So even though they're charging you all this money, they don't want you inside the bank. Yes, online banking is good, yes, all these things, but everything is to keep you out of, because the real thing is the cost. Because once you are in the bank, there somebody has to serve you. They try their best to make it disadvantageous. so that you may close up your small account and go away. But now,
What? Mhm.
an option will be like the credit union. Now a credit union again, a credit union may not, it is not the best return, but it's better than the bank. And two, it creates a level of, it's easier for emergency, right? It's not money you're putting that you're going to take out every day like you do in a bank. If you put money there and a crisis hits, you can get 2 or 3 times what you have without much fuss, as opposed to going in a bank to try and borrow the same amount of money. So it gives you that leverage that in an emergency situation, you have access to even more than you would have there. And the rate, the interest rate repayment is much better than what you will get facing the bank.
I see Wayne was trying to open his mic. Wayne works in the sector. Wayne, you had a question? Or there's a question here. Yeah, so we just answered about the credit union. Wayne, you had something that you wanted to say?
No, I was just agreeing with my friend when he talked about bashing the banks. Bash them, because the reality of it is what he has just said there is not only very realistic but very real. And as I continue to say, and I say it on a lot of our calls, be very careful with the smoke and mirrors, because all those things are put there to keep you in debt and to keep you coming back to them. So I am there still, so I can say it, Wayne. That is the objective, to make a profit.
Yeah. The banks, regardless of the state of the economy, check the bank profits. They're not declining. And they're not lending any money. So as they should. So where is that profit coming from? The charges are going up every day. And people sometimes not even realizing what is costing them just to have an account open in a bank. You know, and I call it a tax, because if you charge me for writing a check or doing something and you charge, but if the money just there, we're taxing the money, because how it going down? Where these charges coming from?
And it's ridiculous, because you have your money in there, which they're paying minus X 0.6%, minus 0.6, which is less than 0.1, like 1%. And if you want to get your money, so your ATM could only give you X dollars. And you have a transaction you want to do that puts you over a particular amount, and you need your money from the bank, they are charging you to take out your money. So what is the purpose of the bank? You know, and the system, legally, we can't keep over a certain amount of money under a mattress, because to me it's cheaper to have it under a mattress, because they wouldn't go into minus figures if anything happens. You still have it there readily available, and it's not being deducted. You know, it's a lose-lose to me from that perspective. So you're correct in saying that really it's just about consumption. Use it for consumption.
Yeah. You could borrow money to travel, but you can't borrow money to start a business. But you know, one of the little pet peeve I have also, and now I'm showing this now to the credit unions, because I had a meeting with a senior credit union, and I said, why are credit unions trying to be banks? I say, you have a unique opportunity to really capitalize on us helping the average. I'd like to use your poor man, you know, but you know, the lower income, to really get returns on their investment. But they're hiring bankers, and I have a problem with that. You're taking people from the banking experience to come in a credit union. No, because you're coming with the same attitude and behavior. Now, credit unions, the budget, well, you know, when they pass a budget, you're not too sure when things will materialize or how. But if the budget, if the minister talk about privatizing gas stations, everyone jump up, say, boy, if they do that, the price will go up, and there's one set of people go buy it out, and blah, 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 and the CUM go buy it. And what is stopping the credit unions from buying out half of the gas station? Creating employment for the members and creating investment and returns from those same things to the members, where the members now could enjoy better returns because they have a stake in something like that. You have to be innovative. You can't sit down and because you have deposits too, and you have to do something with it. And the credit union is encouraging too much consumerism also, because they're letting people money to do all kind of foolishness Christmas time and buy fridge and stove and thing, and instead of they're in a unique position to do what you all are doing here. That's what the credit union should be doing. Having that forum for their members to understand good financial practices and how they could bring. And the credit union could create the business opportunities because they could invest in those opportunities that they can get the kind of returns that will be down to the benefit of the members, right? And this is the kind of, I mean, COVID come, and when it started, everybody concerned, and the Prime Minister talk about reducing how the bank should consider reducing rates on credit cards and moratorium on loans, and the talk was nice, because everybody frightened thing now start. Listen to me. See, at this point in time, nobody cares, and the banks, they're going back to what they're doing, or even worse, and everybody going back to normal, because even during that period, there was no moratorium on interest. The interest was still accruing. Absolutely. The credit cards interest never went down. And today, and I was speaking to a manager colleague of mine in the bank, and I said, but where are you all going with this? I said, businesses are closing. There are businesses that were shut down and never to reopen. I say, the bankers have not left their offices and go to these business places to have a discussion. How can I help you? They are still sitting in their offices, drawing pay, doing nothing. And at some point, so if all these businesses shut down, I mean, the bank have enough reserve, they could continue to run for the next 10 years if everything shut down. So this is why they don't care. But where's the innovation? Why are you not seeing these managers out there pounding the pavement, talking to their clients, trying to come up with solutions, how to get them reopened, how to help them, how to this? You're not hearing. As I said, I say maybe banking changed and I left. I say maybe when the banks put the deposit in the vault to not be heat overnight, and the next day make young ones. Because if you aren't lending any money, how are you making money? But you're still holding on to the money, you're not lending. And I'm not saying lending for consumer purposes. I'm saying the only thing to build back the economy, all this diversification we're talking about, you have to build entrepreneurship, you have to build up entrepreneurs. The banks have to change their whole paradigm where entrepreneurship is concerned and start to facilitate that kind of thing, because that's the only way the economy could bounce back. Otherwise, we're going down a steep incline with no brakes. And until somebody stops and says, listen, this cannot continue to work, we're going to be in some problems.
Yeah, but that is like getting rid. You have to get rid of everybody in order for that to happen, Wayne. That ain't happening because the same people are there from Oli Oho and is really just going a step further with the same sort of practices. We know that for sure. So we have some other panelists. We have Cliff and Donna.
Hi, Cliff. Hi, Donna.
Yes. I was just going to say Cliff and Donna.
Yes.
Because Cliff Samuelsing, Union, and that sector too, and Cliff Samuelsing, you may know him. So he is supposed to be open. Cliff for Donna.
Hi, good night.
Cliff,
Wayne.
Hey, Cliff, what's up?
I believe you should know me.
Yeah, well, I think so. The name sounds familiar.
Listen, why you don't be frank? Why you don't be open and honest? Tell the people that I want to invite you to put back on your banker's hat. Banking has changed its direction over the years.
Before we go, this could be controversial. Eh? So again, Cliff, please make your disclaimer.
No, I'll tell you why. And I'm sure Mr. Pierre could attest to what I'm saying. When we used to be out there, because he and I were at two different banks at the same time, and we would be in Christmas parties, other people's Christmas parties. Some of them we weren't fully invited to. But even inside there, people are there pulling you and talking to you about our application when they come into your earning. So what you are saying is very open and honest about the having a personalized relationship. And I am saying that bankers have gotten caught up with how nice the building looks, forgetting that the relationship is built on the ground level. All right.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you something. You talk about 0.6% is the interest rate on deposits. You know, the local, I agree with that, but you know, the local banks would still say that is good because, you know, in Europe, they've now having negative interest rates. Right?
Well, let me put it this way: the across the board average rate of inflation right now is 0.7, but the inflation rate as at October 2020 on food is 4.4%. 4.4% on food.
That is based on their basket of goods that they select.
Right? And if you're looking at our inflation at 4.4 and the deposit rate is 0.6, think about what's going on.
So my question to you is, Wayne, how soon you think that the banks here are going to start to adopt that same negative interest rates that Europe presently carries and America start thinking about introducing?
Well, as I say, what the banks do, they keep their spread. So if due to monetary policy by the central bank or whatever, they decide to bring down lending rates any lower, then deposit rates will go into the negative because the banks are not giving up on their spread. Because right now the lending rate is prime. The average loan is about 7.5 to 8%. So you're looking at an 8% spread. If through monetary policy the central bank reduce their rates and the banks have to bring down their lending rates, deposit rates are going to go into negative. Because, and I mean, the only reason it may not happen is because the central bank probably wouldn't dare force the banks to carry down their lending rates any further. Because at the end of the day, you know, and this is around the world, you have to understand where the banking system is. That the 1% has the control of the bank. It's not the bank. The bank is just a building, you know. It's the people in the bank.
Say it again.
You understand? They are the ones who controlling this thing because they're benefiting and they're making the money. And for instance, again, and as I always refer to the budget, you know, if they say oranges go up by 10 cents, because you could stop the budget right there, you know, because it means everything across the board. The domino effect of that is everything goes up and ensure that when price goes up, it never comes back down, regardless of what product it is. I'm yet to see something that went up and the price came back down.
I want to ask you something, and I put you on the spot here. Based on our education and what we have been researching and seeing, a number of central banks in different countries are privately owned, not state-owned. How do you feel ours is?
No, well, ours are state.
You sure about that? You feel so?
Yeah, yeah. Well.
How come Rowley run into problems the other day?
Above, how should I say, for public knowledge, it is supposed to be state-owned.
Right.
But the control, and I don't even want to get political, but sometimes we need to know what's happening around us. And it's not no indictment on any party. But I want to take, for instance, when the last administration came into power, right? What was the first thing they did?
They changed the central bank
governor. Changed the central bank governor, right?
Yeah.
And after that, all the foreign exchange disappeared. Because you put people that you could control, and then you dry up the foreign exchange. And I'm not saying the other party probably doing the same thing, but politics trump everything. And So you put somebody who you could control, and really when the public is supposed to feel a level of confidence in the central bank and how they manage in terms of monetary and fiscal policy, it will always work out that way because there are people pulling those strings. For instance, and I don't know quote me, but the main advisor, the financial advisor to the government or the prime minister, is not the minister of finance. It is an ex-banker whose family benefiting quite handsomely from the current administration, and I will say no more on that. But you know, people should know what I'm talking about. But so when you have a banker, and that banker was, I mean, he ran his own ship. The bank that he was in charge of, it was him and nobody else after that. You will see why some of the decisions that are made because they always cater for the upper class. The small man has no say in nothing. You know. We could talk from now to the cows come home.
I'll allow somebody else to take over. All right?
Yeah. All right.
Tell a good night, and I wouldn't mention Mr. Hawaii's name. All right? All right. Take care. Have a good one.
All right.
All right, so we have a question here from Sean Joseph to the panelists. The banking system is designed as described by all, and also it demands that if not at least 98% of the people have to pass their money through these institutions. This is my point exactly, Joseph, that we have to pass the money through that type of institution. My question is, how can I advise my children to capitalize on this apart from just having a good job letter? Because even though a good business idea is good, it is still a losing streak. So he wants to know, how can he, taken all that you have said, Wayne, and the discussion so far, how can he now advise his children on how to capitalize from this system that apparently they would also face?
All right.
So he's thinking about preparing the next generation.
Yeah, well, hopefully by the time the next generation come up, the banking system will have collapsed. Well, not collapsed, but I don't want to get into the crypto side of things, which is your forte. But I am hoping by such time that it will be more prominent and it will put some pressure on the banking system as we know it to continue to operate how they're operating. So that's for a different discussion and a different person to give you all those insights. But one of the things I want to say now, people are going to the bank, whether it's for a personal loan or whatever, right? And well, I don't owe nobody. I never borrow, so I'm good. No credit is almost as bad as bad credit. So my suggestion is, even sometimes you may not need a loan for whatever purpose, but it's good to take a small loan that you're comfortable that you could pay and build your credit rating. You have to build a credit rating, right? And I say, take something small that you know whether you take it and invest it and pay back. You might be paying back a little more than you own it, but it is good because we reach 25, we reach 30, we want to do something, and I never borrow money, so I supposed to be good. And you go to the bank, sometimes you can't even open an account, because one of the hardest things to do in China right now is to open a business account or even a personal account. I have never seen it. You can leave here and go any part of the world and open a bank account first thing for open in China, and you're born and grow here. They're among the things you have to go through, especially for a business account. 3 years or the accounts. If the company now start 3 years projections. So if you projected, if you open a business account in 2019 and you did a 3-year projection, and then 2020 it went to those projections. And as I told you, I could raise the kind of money I raised with a job letter for 4 months. And you never asked me if my employer could keep me employed for the next 2 months. But yet if I have a business, you want 3 years projections to even open the account, farm out the finance. I mean, it is ridiculous, So then you're talking about entrepreneurship on the one hand, and then people are running down and spending a whole lot of money at legal affairs, registering companies and whatever, and they have all their registration documents and then they can't get a bank account. It is as bad as that. So you have to start somewhere. As I say, the banks are a necessary evil at this point in time. You try open take a small loan here and there, just kind of pay it back and build a credit rating, and hopefully when the time reaches that you really need to do something, because it knows when you build your business and you're successful, then the banks come after you to lend you money. When you need the money, is a different story. So let the young ones start early, building some kind of credit rating, some kind of relationship with a bank, and so forth.
Good night, Wayne.
Night.
This is Edwin here.
Yes, we have Mr. Edwin.
Very interesting topic and conversation. And you're sharing some insights that I am painfully aware of, trying to finance credit for business and stuff through the banks. My question to you is, as I've heard in different quarters, do you think the quote-unquote Susu revolution that is taking place now is affecting the banks and their profitability?
No, that Susu thing is that insignificant in terms of the bank's resources and capacity. However, and I'm not saying I am for it or against it, but we know Susu all our lives, right? It take on a national scale at this point in time, and a lot of uproar. Now, I haven't heard anyone come forward and say, I put in the money and I lose it, right? I didn't hear anyone come. As a matter of fact, the first, the reason why this whole thing was open in the first place was people gathering against the COVID-19 regulations, and that's how the whole social thing even came to light. And all of a sudden, the focus become the Susu. Let me tell you something. Chinese running Susu long time. They running playway on the side, which is illegal. They're still doing it. Everybody doing things. As a matter of fact, there are Chinese, and I'm sorry if there are any Chinese in the panel. I just talk in level. They come to Trinidad. They set up businesses. Every other building on the east-west corridor is either a Chinese restaurant or a supermarket. Where the money come from? They didn't come with the money. It coming through the association and so. Isn't that they ain't going to the bank either? Isn't that a form of Susu? But they do it to set up businesses. But here it is, you're coming down, and I say, I'm not saying I'm for or against this Susu thing, but I'm saying, what's the big, why this became a national thing, and the police commissioner give up on his holidays to come back to treat with the Susu, foolishness, pure foolishness. And I stopped even listening to that rhetoric because I know it's just maybe because of the people who are involved and whatever, they're making a thing of it. But the other people doing it. Let me tell you something. We sometimes we talk about the 1%, and being a banker, doing mortgages in the past, I did some financing for a number of Syrian people living in Westmoreland and so. And they tell me plain, they say because we live in Westmoreland, we have money. Sometimes we don't have food to eat. But they have a network, a family, extended family network that for one to fail is an embarrassment to the rest. So you find that they get support. They get support from their own. And that is why, they are not to start business and move forward. Malcolm X said it. He said you could never go into Chinatown and see African business. He said you can't go into Indian town and see African business. He said but going to any African village, it's only Indian and Chinese running business. So we are the only people open to any and everybody, but we can't go into none of these areas and set up any kind of business. You know, so we had to be, you know, we had to know what we want.
So true, so true. Thanks.
All right, we still have Kester Beals and Noel Emmanuel Jack. I know, Noel, you had put something in the chat. Do you have any questions or observations? Because we passed the top of the hour. We may have to have a second part to this, of course.
Okay, good night, everyone.
Mr.
Pierre, we thank you very much for coming on the call. You're not just a man of many degrees, you know, but you're very practical, down to earth, and you're talking straight from the heart, man. You know,
Yeah.
me personally, I don't really like banks at all. To me, this is just a big rape on humanity. You know, it's really a great evil. But we understand we're living in the world, and we can't really change this system as it is. Even in the cryptocurrency space, I don't believe we can change it. But we can position ourselves close to the innovative stage and the early adaptive stage, and to profit to some extent, right? But the mass control, we really can't. I don't believe we can change it, right? But my question is, considering what you mentioned about opening up of the personal bank account and the business bank account, as a young entrepreneur, as a person who is now, and I'm just saying this generally, right? Starting a business, will you advise a person now starting up to get a business account? You know, there's something called, I heard just recently, something called commingling, that you should have the account separate. So if you're doing your personal account, don't mix it. Don't do business on your personal account. What is your advice there, especially as you're now starting up with all the requirements that the banks will demand from you in order to set up that business account? What is your advice there? And I thank you very much for adding value to this call. Thank you.
Thank you. It depends on the form of business that you open. When I say the form, the business could be a sole proprietorship or it could be a limited liability company. If you form a limited liability company, as I will tell you, a limited company is an entity in itself. So a limited liability company separates the owners from the company. They're two separate entities. Whereas a sole proprietorship, you and the company one and the same. So whether you're paying you're buying groceries out of the account or whatever, that is no problem. But the commingling comes when you have a limited liability company and you have shareholder, and you cannot now run or use the company's assets for your personal benefits or requirements. You have to separate the two. If you need to get something out of the company, then you do it via drawings, dividends, or whatever. But you can't run it as though with a company, but you know, you can run expenses, but those expenses will come as either a salary to you or dividend to you. But a sole proprietorship, you and the company remains the same. But a business, a limited liability business, is a separate and legal entity on its own. Now, and this is where I don't want to use it. Let me say the irony, right? Exists. The banks tell you no commingling. You can't take funds from company, put into yours and whatever. But when you borrow on the company's name, they tie up every asset that you have in a personal guarantee. So that if anything goes wrong with the company, they come after your assets anyway. You understand? So this is the hypocrisy of the whole thing. They're telling you keep things separate. But when you borrow money, they put it together because they say, the company signed, but you have to sign a personal guarantee. And we come in after you. After we take what the company have, if there's anything still owing, they come and take what you have. You know, so it's not only should you keep your assets separate. You must also make sure the bank don't know what your personal assets are. So because when you sign that guarantee, that's it. They're coming after you.
But shouldn't we have someone, Wayne, who would protect the citizens from really the bank?
Remember there was something called an ombudsman? I don't know what become of that.
But that person has title but no teeth.
Yeah, but I am sure they have one right now because I haven't heard that name for a while.
There is an ombudsman. I don't want to say his name. There is an ombudsman. His effectivity or his effectiveness is another issue, but there is an ombudsman.
Because just like you, Wayne, I always ask that question: if you cannot commingle your accounts, how come the bank have the authority to put my personal assets with the company assets? You know.
Let me share, and I like to talk from experience, to show you. I mean, as we say, we're talking about the wickedness of the banks, and I will share that personal experience again. I was doing some business with a bank, and they did some foolishness with my accounts. I said to them, I said, no, you can't do that. No, when they go to the bank and they speak politely, they feel like there's a fool, so they challenge you. No, management made a decision. I don't know who's management. They made a decision. I said, well, no, you can't do that. And we're pushing it to you. No, I'm not telling them that I am a qualified banker. So they treated me as anybody else. I said, anyway, go hear from my lawyers. I went to my lawyer. And the lawyer, well, it was a husband and wife team, had a practice. And the lawyer wrote the bank. And then the bank lawyers now wrote back to my lawyers with an apology, saying that the bank made an error. They owe in their judgment and they apologize for any inconvenience. I then said to my lawyer, they didn't apologize to me to start with. Instead, I said to my lawyer, I said, that is not sufficient for me. I said, this thing caused me great distress and I need to be compensated. He said, yeah, we sue them for some money. And while I was sitting in his office a morning, his wife came to the door. She didn't come into the office. So she stood by the door and asked him, not seeing that I am there, you handling a matter for Wayne Payne? And he said, yeah. She said, well, I just got a call from the bank manager, so. And he asked if we could make that matter go away. No, she not seeing me, and he can't tell her, well, the man sit down right here. So he said, no, I will talk to you. That was the last I heard of that matter. That was the last I heard of that matter, because the bank could even influence the people who are supposed to be protecting us. Because maybe the lawyer owing them money. So they call the lawyer and say, listen, make this matter go away. And it went away. As easy as that. And that is to tell you what you're up against dealing with these banks.
All right. Yeah, I think we have surpassed
Mr.
the
Pierre,
time.
thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, okay. All right.
I mean, this is a big topic. I don't know if you could give us a second installment, but definitely we could never actually go through this whole banking system with just one program, because we have some other questions here. We have Kester Beals, quickly, and I think that will be the last question observation for the night.
Greetings.
Kester.
Yeah, I thank you for your sterling contributions and extremely enlightening discussions and information you shared. Basically, it is always said that banks are necessary evil. And I know that currency value itself is secured by trust. I trust what you have, what skills you have, etc. And we exchange, because there are companies, well, small businesses that exchange services and no cash passes.
Right.
There are people who still barter, no cash pass. So I challenge this entire banks are necessary evil. Banks are probably there for speed, and I think they are just playing around with the cryptocurrency so they could get their foot in it, because central bank digital currencies, as far as I'm concerned,
is a delaying tactic for them to learn a little more. Additionally, digressing to another topic, interbank lending. Do you have anything on interbank lending? Because we know they lend each other money.
Yeah, I could actually give you the rate that they do that at 0.5% is what the banks borrow and lend each other at. So a lot of that takes place, you know, and again, you know, some people get offended when they use the word the cartel, but it is to some extent because they follow the same, you know, if one takes some initiative, the others follow, and I mean, these are what we probably call VTM cards, right? The reduction in credit card amounts. When one bank did it, and all the banks follow, you know, and they just cut and reduce everyone's credit card facilities. Maybe people buying too much money on spending too much money on online purchases, you know, and again, you know, last week I think I saw the first PEA on the road. It was 4,000 something. Today I saw 9,000 something. Where these cars come from? We don't manufacture cars, so somebody bringing them in.
Correct.
And why are they bringing them in and spending all the foreign exchange to bring them in? I don't know if any of the panelists have experience as I have, how charges and taxes have gone up on online purchases. You go by Amazon and buy a little thing and you bring it in, all of a sudden the money they charge you want to know how it reached to this. Right? So they're trying to discourage the small man from buying, because these people bringing in stuff and selling it 10 times the price that they pay for it, and you're bringing your stuff now, and all of a sudden you're seeing a sharp increase in the taxes and charges, the duties and charges for these little online purchases. But I just want to quickly get back to one of the reasons I talk about the bank being a necessary evil. Any employee or any young person joining a business establishment, you know, the first thing they ask for? They have a bank account, because you don't get paid by check and you don't get paid by cash. You have to have a bank account so they can send you money. All the banks are cutting back on changing checks if you are not a customer of the bank and all this other thing. So the banks they are turning the screws on you that you have to use the facilities for one reason or the other. Because almost all employers that I know now paying basically ACH to the banking system, and you have to have a bank account. A company I work for, and they do janitorial services, and any new employee, the first thing they want is a bank account. So sometimes you have to find a way that you're using that facility with the bank, as I say, just to pass through for the passage of funds, not to leave money there.
Okay, well then to be political. Oh, my signal. Sorry, I thought you had stopped. My signal faded a bit.
Okay.
Well, basically, to be politically,
you missed most of what was said.
Yes, I missed most of what was said.
All right.
But to be politically correct, rather than they being a necessary evil, I think they created that situation, so they made themselves a necessary evil.
Yeah, but that's the point I'm making. You know, that okay. This is not by chance. This is orchestrated.
By design.
That is the plan.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's to keep a certain level of society in poverty. We can't beat around that, you know. As I say, and I start off by saying that the banks are not here to make you rich. No matter what, the bank is here to help you. The bank is here to help themselves, because they are businesses and they're looking to make money at your expense.
All right, thank you so much. That's
So
me, Ivan.
yeah, so we'll end it there for tonight. Um, Before I turn it back over to the host, Wayne Wilson, I want to thank our gracious guest speaker, Mr. Wayne Pierre, for making himself available to take on this difficult task of speaking about the bank truthfully, and of course, speaking through experience. So, Wayne, I don't know if you have any closing remarks, or if you would
Yeah, I want to close by saying that,
invite you again to another session.
yeah, uh, I want to close by saying that after all the discussion, and and I think everybody has had some level of experience based on what I spoke about. I am very, very pleased. I am very, very proud of this session, because I think this is the kind of discourse that needs to take place on a wider scale, because we had to bring about the change, I mean, it is not a simple matter. It's an uphill task, but the little small start of the gatherings and the discourse had to spread further and wider, because people are hurting, and we're going into a year that's going to be a very, very difficult year, and we're in a kind of callous society that, and we have to understand too that Trinidad, we have ourselves to blame to some extent, because we defy all economic theory.
Yes.
Basic 101 economics: price goes up, demand goes down. Not in Trinidad and Tobago. I wouldn't be surprised if more cars sell next year with the price go up, because we continue to allow the politicians, the economists to push us around, and we continue to spend. I am seeing people lining up by Price Smart and all over the place this month, and probably telling themselves next year will see for itself. No, next year won't see for itself, You have to forget this Christmas rush and spending money, and people have to start to become a little more frugal in terms of their spending, and so on, and have these discussions on a more regular basis to sensitize people what are some of the options that they have, and let us go forward with it. So I'm very, very happy that you all are doing what you're doing here, and I really hope that it will pick up and spread faster and wider, so that more people start to think seriously about how they spend or invest their money. So I thank the panel, I thank everyone, and I thank you for having me.
All right, thank you so much, Wayne. Before I pass it on to the other Wayne, let me just end with a little snippet of future banking, what that would look like. And then, Wayne Wilson, you'll take it from there.
Hello, Bank Manager.
Hi, Maria. What can I do for you?
Summary of accounts, please. Festival savings. Transfer £200 from festival savings to current account. Reference ticket purchase.
Hey, Maria. We have a partnership with X Tickets. What tickets do you want to purchase?
2 tickets for Berlin Festival?
Sure. These tickets come on sale in a few seconds. Do you want us to purchase them automatically as soon as they're available?
Yes.
Congratulations. Please authenticate on your purchase. We can provide help and advice for your upcoming trip. Would you like to know more?
What can you offer?
to a multi-currency account to save on fees, and booking a flight soon, as availability is rapidly reducing since festival tickets went on sale.
Let's do it. So, we are going to Berlin. Tickets on.
Wow, wow, wow. Well, once again, Mr. Pierre, thank you for sharing, sir. It has been, as I said from the beginning, a very enlightening night. And I want to thank you also for all your insight and for sharing. We both know the ins and outs, and a lot of it today. I pray that as we expose it, people really delve into it and take it seriously, because as you said, next year is going to be a challenging year. So once again, we want to thank you for coming on tonight and sharing. I also want to thank all our participants from around the world for coming on once again tonight. Please remember tomorrow, conversations with Lisa at 10 a.m. Trinidad and Tobago time. And also Monday, we will be right back here for another presentation of the OneAcademy. So from the OneAcademy Knights, we want to thank you all, especially Mr. Pierre. Pleasant good night to all.
Thank you.
Good night, good night, good night.